I am going to be a judge. Yes, somebody gave me a position of power, and frankly, I don't know if that's a good idea. Joking, it actually is a good idea. I'm very excited about this. This year, I am going to be a judge for SPFBO. SPFBO, which if you don't know, is the official self-published fantasy blog off that is hosted by Mark Lawrence. Now, it is the 10th year of this competition, making it SPFBOX or SPFBOX, and the whole idea behind this is to shine a light on some self-published fantasy, to find some truly excellent books that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. Now, I have had a big goal on the channel this year to read more self-published fantasy, so when Mark Lawrence gave me this opportunity, I had to accept. And now the power courses through my veins. So basically how it all works is 300 of the self-published books that were submitted are chosen at random, then divided among 10 different bloggers or reviewers who act as the judges. Somebody get me a gavel because I'm one of the judges this year. Objection! And I'm also gonna have links to all the other amazing judges in my description. I'll also have them up on the screen here. Definitely make sure to check out all of their links as well. They're amazing, and you can keep up with what they're reading for SPFBO as well. Now, there are different phases to this competition. So phase 1, which we're in right now, starting in June, takes 5 months. And this is basically where all 10 of the judges go through our pile of 30 books, and we find that one book that stands out that we want to put through to the final. We need to publicly review that title that we chose, and we can also review some of the others if we choose as well. So this phase is going to go right up to the end of October. Phase 2, which takes 6 months, is where all the judges go through and read the 9 other books that were chosen by the other judges. Out of the other 9, we choose our favorite and we review it, and then there's a scoreboard and everything, and we end up reviewing the winner as well. Now, previous winners of SPFBO include some amazing titles like Orconomics, The Lost War, The Sword of Kaigan, and last year's winner, Murder at Spindle Manor. I am so excited to find some new favorite books from this. I'm really hoping to find some gems, and also just to give some more recognition to some indie authors and let their works take the spotlight. I'm also hoping that I can give you guys some really great recommendations. Now, I should note Mark Lawrence has stated that the judges don't have to fully read through all of the books, but you should try to get through some of them. So for example, if there's some that you can tell aren't going to be finalists, you don't need to push through and read the entire thing. I'm gonna try to get to as many of these as I can though. And today I'm gonna go through all 30 of the titles that I'm gonna be reading. Okay, first up we have Dawn of the Black Sun by Timo Burnham. Now this is a martial arts progression fantasy. It is 242 pages, or 262 pages, which is actually a pretty short fantasy novel. I might actually start with this one. In the world of the Silver Empire, there are magical talking swords, martial arts demigods, and ancient mysteries lost to time. We follow Ryushu, a fisherman's son whose world is torn apart. Now he must journey to the top of Mount Garoon to find and be trained by the mystical Hio Masters so that he can seek vengeance. Meanwhile, an exile wanders the barren lands, holding a sword that speaks and slowly gathers followers. You guys know I love talking swords. This is sounding really awesome. I think I might have to start with this one. The Best of the Last of Us by Anthony Halligan. Enter a world where forgotten magic thrums in the very air and danger lurks around every corner. Awakening in a realm tinged with mystery and wonder, a spirited young woman finds herself at the heart of an extraordinary journey, shrouded in secrets, prophecies, and ancient powers waiting to be unleashed. Molten Flux by Jonathan Wise. This one sounds like a Mad Max style sci fantasy where water isn't used for life anymore, it's used for drawing ruins on your skin with magical inks. We follow Ryza, a recruit aboard this walking fortress, and the enemy are the Smelters, bandits that trade in reanimated corpses. Molten Flux is the mysterious liquid metal that makes the bodies of the dead walk again, and the reanimated corpses, known as automines, are used to control enormous contraptions of magnetically enhanced metal, forming the backbone of the Droughtlands factories. The only thing stopping the Smelters from expanding their industry is the walking fortress. Now, this kind of sounds like a mix of Mad Max and like Howl's Moving Castle, and I truly hope it is as awesome as that concept sounds. A Curse Within the Waves by B.N. Real. This is a young adult book following Iris, a 17-year-old girl who joins her pirate father on a treasure hunt, which begins on an island haunted by bloodthirsty creatures, menacing ogres, and seductive sirens. She ends up becoming cursed and transformed into a mermaid, and abandoned by her father once again. It looks like she ends up finding a sexy merman and embarking on a quest to find a cure. This one sounds really interesting. Copper Cold Steel by Sori Errol. Now this one was a little bit difficult to find information for online, but it follows a young woman who hides her identity after her father passes, and when her stepsisters are chosen for the princess tests, she becomes a guard for another lady and struggles to keep her identity a secret while helping her sisters win the hearts of the Golden Princes. By Blood, by Salt by J.L. Odom. Now this one just sounds very interesting. I love desert settings in fantasy, and the synopsis sounds very intriguing to me. When Azetla's battalion is sent into the desert to catch a Zahar devil, one of the famously brutal inhabitants of the region, his tenuous position is threatened. He discovers that there is far more to this mission than catching a fiend. The devil that Azetla finds in the desert is not what anyone expects or wants. As the conspiracy against the Emperor becomes entangled with the simmering ambitions of the desert tribes, Azetla must decide if he's willing to strike a bargain with a devil in order to survive. Naturally, she's not to be trusted, but then again, neither is he. Now, a detail that I noticed in the author's bio is that it highlighted her experience as an Arabic linguist in the US Marine Corps, so I'm really interested to see if that's going to translate over into the book. The Kiss of the Sky by Sign Heart. This one sounds really interesting. It follows Mirth, who is a Sylvan, a green-skinned child of the forest. In order to retrieve an artifact, she infiltrates a human city and is caught by an arrogant human mage. Now, this is the first book in the Song of the Sylvan series, which is an epic fantasy featuring a world conquered by forest and a war between humans and the non-human Sylvan people. And it is a slow burn, enemies to lovers on opposite sides of the war type of story. Stone and Sky by Z.S. Diamante. Now, I love the classic fantasy art on this cover. You really don't see enough griffins these days. And here we follow Orin, a member of the Griffin Guard, who works with his brothers to defend their home from the orcs that threaten it. It sounds like there's a big war going on between orcs and humans, and it looks like we also get the perspective of one of these orcs named Karnak, so that could be very interesting. This sounds like a return to like old school epic fantasy, and I'm here for it. Creatures of the Malignant Thicket by Demetria Maltinos. I am all for dinosaurs in fantasy. Bring me the dinos. In this book, it looks like on the cover we got a dino right there hiding in the background, and that's what I like to see. In a world where humans and dinosaurs coexist, Farah Advin is a fierce advocate for the protection of dinosaurs despite being orphaned because of them. It sounds like Farah ends up discovering this dinosaur hybrid, which becomes a beacon of hope for her and a target for those seeking power. I mean, you already got my interest at dinosaurs. The Grand Game by Tom Elliott. Now, this one has the most amount of ratings out of all 300 books in this year's SPFBO. It has 4,751 ratings. This is a dark fantasy lit RPG adventure, and it's described as one man, assassin, caster, a new world, and a game that is as brutal as it is complex. We follow a man who has no memory of who he is or how he got to the Forever Kingdom. Even so, he must participate in the grand game to forge a new destiny for himself. Now, I have been reading quite a bit of lit RPG recently. I'm a big fan of Dungeon Crawler Carl. I also recently started He Who Fights with Monsters, and I gotta say, this one sounds very promising, and I also really like the cover. Gabriel's Journey by Thomas J. Prestopnik. Now, this is the oldest entry out of all 300 of the books in SPFBO this year. It was published 21 years ago. It is very different than any of the others on this list in that it follows a mouse. Basically, it's the story of Gabriel and his community of field mice that are making a journey to move from the wild because of a new threat of these beasts that are hunting them. And so it's their journey to move into a pampered little estate. I grew up reading Redwall, I grew up watching The Secret of Nim and The American Tale. I mean, I can enjoy a good story about a mouse, and this sounds very cozy. A Song for Octavian by R.C. Ballad. Now this one is a queer polyamorous fantasy romance with a musical magic system. It follows a second-year student at Octavian University where musicians sing spells and perform enchantments. I really like the idea of a musical magic system. Also, this one is described as a standalone cozy fantasy. Next, we have Guarding Gus by Karen Nagel. This story follows Nico, a transgender man working as a bonsai bodyguard who becomes friends with a good-natured cookie guard and forms a bond with a baby gargoyle in need, and sets off on a quest to reunite it with its rightful owner. Now, this one is described as a heartwarming, cozy fantasy, and it's a pretty short read as well, with 164 pages. Gluttony by Viljami L. This one seems to be a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. I'm gonna be honest here, I found the synopsis kind of confusing for this one. For all of these, I'm trying to paraphrase the synopsis. This one I had a little bit of difficulty, and there's no reviews for it online, so I was a little bit confused, but it seems to follow a pair of cousins on an industrializing planet enjoying a fairground when their peace is shattered. Ifrit, Shiver, and Odin have come to execute their mission and are ready to fight to the death for the sake of their duty. Now, I'm wondering if it's a typo and it's meant to be Shiva, Ifrit, and Odin, you know, like in Final Fantasy. I could be wrong though. Maybe it's meant to be Shiver. I guess I'll have to read and find out. My Name Is Not Alice by Angelica Rust. Now, this is book 1 in the Resident Witch series, and basically it looks like it's a young adult dark fantasy retelling of Alice in Wonderland. It's got rabbits and witches and shapeshifters. I gotta say, the title font is kind of reminding me of Goosebumps. I don't think this is gonna be like Goosebumps though. Next, we have Sailing to Redoubt by C. Litka. This is the story of a young Navy lieutenant and his adventures in the company of 2 Vente Island sorceresses on a quest to discover the secrets of the legendary lost outpost of the world's first people, the Founders. Equipped with a map, a golden key, and a small yacht, they sail across the bright blue and sometimes deadly tropic sea. Now, this one sounds like a good old-fashioned adventure story, and who doesn't love that? Oublié by Susanna Imaginario. Fun fact, the only reason I know the word oublié is from watching the classic Labyrinth movie with David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. There's like that terrifying scene with the oubliette, and that just always stuck with me. I love the Labyrinth. Anyways, this book sounds extremely unique. Stranded on a sentient moon with nothing but their enhanced intuition and the help of a bygone deity, the survivors of a post-human race set out to investigate the sudden disappearance of their enemies. What they find might plunge the universe into oblivion. Galaxies away, after a narrow escape from Niflheim, the god of the dead and the goddess of writing forge an alliance with a Nephilim to uncover the fate of the all but forgotten goddess of memory when they receive a distress call from the god of reckoning. Okay, that synopsis has me very intrigued. It sounds like this is going to be a very weird fantasy in a good way, and it looks like it has a lot to do with like mythology and stuff. And this book is a standalone in the author's Timelessness series. Speak the Ocean by Rebecca Ansor. Now, this one takes place in a world where mermaids are captured by humans and forced to perform in these establishments that are similar to SeaWorld, which is very messed up. The author has an opportunity to really explore some dark stuff with this, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Basically, it follows a trainer of one of these parks that finds a mermaid, and he ends up discovering this mermaid is very human-like. The mermaid ends up learning English, and this book is a mermaid romance, so obviously they're going to fall in love. But yeah, again, I'm really hoping that the author's going to touch on some very dark themes of like captivity and stuff, because it seems like that's where this is leaning to. Kithoma's Fated by Jeffrey A. Smith. This one follows a failed chosen one, which I find really interesting. I've never really read a story like that. I don't think anyway. Basically, it follows a protagonist who is born under the red comet Kithoma. He was fated to defeat the Emperor and his reign of terror before it even began. He left his family at 10 years old to be trained with an ancient order of monks and set out on a quest to find 10 powerful rings set to fulfill his prophecy. But he failed. Can he find the 10th ring and achieve redemption when the comet returns? Or is it already too late? Very cool concept. I love the cover as well, how it's got like the rings on it and the one missing ring is in the text. I'm excited to read this. Dragon Thief by Blake and Raven Penn. Now, this is book 1 in the Skystone Chronicles. I gotta say, I'm loving the kind of like double exposure effect on the cover there. And also, you can't go wrong with a dragon on your cover. Very cool cover. Anyways, here we follow Asher, a thief and an outcast. Some hate him for his scale-tipped pointed ears. Others wish him dead because he's a magi in a land where those are outlawed. Now Asher gets a chance to avenge his mother's death by taking down the legendary leader of the mage hunters herself. And he joins a crew of knights determined to steal a dragon egg. This one sounds very promising to me, and it just sounds like a really fun adventure. Obsidian Murders by Nicole Brana. Now, this one is a paranormal urban fantasy mystery. A journalist who's kind of weird. I love how she just calls out the protagonist there. A 500-year-old vampiric detective, 2 young women dead from an unknown magical source. And it looks like we follow Tessa and a range of magical sidekicks as she tries to find the killer. This could be a very cozy urban fantasy mystery. Kingdom of Forgotten Curses by Autumn Coffer. Now this book is described for fans of Beauty and the Beast, Dracula, and romantic fairy tales. This one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, some vampire and fae influence. The author actually incorporates elements of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it promises to be an enemies to lovers romance. Amient Soul by Deborah Makarios. The story follows a man named Ghost, an outsider living in a quiet backwater village, but when a dying man comes in the door, everything changes, for he is one of the 3 men, a legendary brotherhood of adventurers, bodyguards, trackers, smugglers, and even occasional assassins. Ghost joins the 3 men in their search for a missing crown princess, while still silently seeking the name he's never had and the family he's never known. Now, I believe this one incorporates like a found family, which I always love to see. Darkness Below by Barbara Cottrell. Okay, this one I saw described as a blend of like Lovecraft and dark academia with a little bit of Indiana Jones in there. That sounds like an excellent combo to me. Miskatonic University, a place where myth and reality meet. We follow Ellen Logan when a former roommate jumps to her death from the university clock tower and another friend vanishes, leaving her with a mysterious book. She embarks on her own investigations. Okay, I feel like there's gonna be like some secret societies, maybe some occult influence in here. It sounds like a really like urban fantasy mystery type of story. I'm excited to get to it. Next up, we have The Eightfold Layers of Zilenthia by Melinda O'Donnell. This one takes place on a world of desolate wastelands where scattered pockets of humanity exist, and it looks like we follow 3 different points of view, including Saria, who's been locked away in a tower since birth for crimes that she didn't commit. Then there's Kinnek, a leader of a man who's helping his people stave off hunger and desperation. And Azola, who is a mighty warrior of legend in her own right. Really interested to see how all of their stories end up connecting. The Spark by Katrine Butch Mortison. This is book 1 in the Patron Wars. The Patron Wars utilizes a magic and combat system where clan warriors can harness the attributes of various animals. Wolves, bears, vipers, big cats, ravens, and more. Listen, I played a druid in World of Warcraft. I am all for that shape-shifting life, and this sounds very interesting. amazing. The Young Necromancer's Guide to Ghost by Vanessa Reese Thode. This one is a middle grade fantasy. It's 179 pages, and it follows Lucy, a perfectly normal 12-year-old wizard, except for the part where she can speak to ghosts. But everyone knows that ghosts aren't real. It sounds like she ends up running away with her big sister to escape their uncle's terrible plan, and they set out to the Wizards Guild for help. And I'm assuming that's where Lucy discovers that she is a necromancer. This one sounds very interesting. I'm a big fan of Sabriel by Garth Nix, which has like an interesting twist on necromancy, so I'm hoping that I'm also going to enjoy this one. Forged by Pain by Bojan Bilos. Now this one looks like it's like a very psychological, emotional journey of a villain. It's basically a villain's origin story. It follows Princess Amelia, who survives a brutal coup that kills her parents and imprisons her in a tower of torture. She's tortured for 4 years, and she escapes with 2 unlikely allies, but not without losing her sanity and her humanity. She becomes a ruthless and cunning villainess who seeks to inflict pain on those who wronged her. Kindred of the Sea by Raina Nightingale. It's described as a cozy fantasy and a tale of platonic love and adventure that will take you to new worlds and magical beings, including the dolphins in the seas of Alair. I was wondering where dolphins would come into play because there's dolphins on the cover. There's actually 2 different covers of this one that I found online. They both got dolphins though, so we can expect dolphins. Dual Fires by J.L. Anderson. Now this one is described as for fans of fantasy fiction who love an epic battle between light and dark. Dual Fires brings a unique look at magical societies, their beliefs and legends, and what it means for a hero to be destined for greatness, with refreshing twists and turns that make it an atypical hero's journey. Now it's also described as for fans of Mistborn and the Black Prism, and it also has a sort of light-based magic system. I'm really excited to learn more about that. And there we have all 30 of the indie fantasy books I'm going to be reading for SPFBO. Now let me know in the comments if any of those stand out to you, and if you plan on reading any of them, let me know down below. I also want to highlight the top 5 that stood out to me from this list that I'm really excited to get to, just kind of based on their descriptions and whatnot. First up, Dawn of the Black Sun. This one, I'm really excited to get into like progression fantasy more, and this one I might actually start with first. It sounds really interesting to me. Dragon Thief. This one also just sounds like a really fun fantasy adventure. I also like the idea of the character having like kind of dragon features. Creatures of the Malignant Thicket. Dinosaurs, need I say more? Molten Flux, I'm gonna choose that one next because the whole concept of like Mad Max mixed with Howl's Moving Castle type of story, that sounds awesome to me. And The Kiss of the Sky. I'm really interested to learn about these Sylvan, these children of the forest, and I'm really interested to see how like the romance plays out. Those are the 5 that stood out to me the most. They all sound so interesting though. I'm very excited to find that one hidden gem that I'm gonna push into the finals. And of course, I'm going to be reviewing all of the finalists on the channel here. I'm also probably gonna review some of the others as well. I might make videos where I review like 3 at a time or something like that. I got a lot of reading ahead of me, so that's it for this video. I'll see you soon.